Hey guys, the topic of this video is something I'd usually address in written form, but since most of it is about YouTube, I've decided to do it here. I'll tell you right at the top that this is going to be very political, which is something I usually keep off this channel, but I'm actually quite a political person in real life, and well, I'm afraid this whole COPPA fiasco is politics, and if politics is going to invade my hobby, I'm going to have to get political. So don't watch this if you don't want politics in your hobbying, I guess, but I'm not the one who's at fault here. This is about a corporation doing a bunch of fucked up shit and right-wing politicians protecting said corporation at the expense of small businesses. And I'm not going to pretend I didn't notice that.
RoboShop.
So, first off, I'll just give you the short version of what I've decided to do, and that's basically nothing. I've been trying to gather what I could in terms of commentary on the COPPA settlement, and it doesn't look like I really need to do anything. Apparently, YouTube did their own sweep recently with one of their notoriously shitty algorithms that flagged what they considered child-directed content, and none of my videos got hit. I've mentioned before that I'm a bit concerned about the impression my Zoids videos might give off at first glance, but they didn't get picked up even though I tagged them as toy reviews. That's very likely the case because they're only concerned about videos that are monetized anyway. Even if YouTube is gathering user data from kids through my channel, I'm not making a dime off of it and I probably never will. Also, I don't see how the American Federal Trade Commission is going to sue me since I'm in Europe, so the worst thing that can possibly happen is that my channel gets shut down, and in all honesty, if that happens, then so be it. But I still think this whole thing stinks to high heaven, and I'll tell you why. The real story of what happened here is this. COPPA, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, was originally passed in the late 1990s, basically to make sure that kids couldn't give their addresses to child molesters. When it was expanded in 2011 to include other forms of data collection, obviously that created a problem for Google because collecting user data is Google's entire business model. If you don't believe me or you just want to give yourself nightmares for a while, go to something called Google Takeout and download an archive of everything Google knows about you. Spoiler alert, it's everything. And that's the problem, of course. Once they couldn't legally collect user data from kids under 13 anymore, they just made all their services age restricted. But that didn't stop kids from using them, and you don't have to tell Google how old you are. They know how old you are because they're gathering all this data about you, which still wouldn't be a problem. If parents give their tablets to kids to watch cartoons on YouTube or kids create accounts where they lie about their age, that's hardly Google's fault, and honestly, even I wouldn't fault them. But as you probably know by now, not only were they consciously collecting user data from kids, they actually bragged to advertisers about the fact that they had this data and sold it to them openly. And then they got busted. But I don't really care about any of that. The part that pisses me off is this. If you watch the press conference where the FTC announced the terms of the settlement that all this resulted in, there's two things you really need to be paying attention to. First is the fact that the settlement is $170 million, and the way Andrew Smith, that's the scary guy who you've seen saying suing individual users will be like shooting fish in a barrel. The way Andrew Smith talks about that, repeating over and over what an enormous sum this is and how hard they're hitting Google with a $170 million fine. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? That's probably how much Google makes in 2 days. I'm not even going to look that up because I'm still having stomach problems from eating too much over the holidays. And he keeps saying this over and over to make sure you believe him that it's a big deal because he knows it isn't. But the real kicker for me was when a journalist asked him to comment on the fact that this was a partisan decision. Because get this, as it turns out, the majority of the commissioners on the FTC are Republicans, and it was those Republican commissioners who were in favor of the settlement, whereas the Democrats were against it because it didn't go far enough. A settlement that consists of a fine that's basically a joke to the corporation that's been fined, and what? Going after individual YouTube users by forcing us to label our own videos and not telling us how, that's what. And this is why I'm making this video. Conservatives in the States, as well as right here in Europe, will never shut the fuck up about how they're the ones who are all about protecting small business owners and how everything liberal politicians want to do, whether it's environmental regulations or unions asking for a minimum wage that you can actually survive on, all that is crazy overregulation that's going to destroy small businesses and blah blah. Vote conservative because we'll save the local mom and pop store, right? And if you look at the COPPA settlement, you can see exactly what actually happens. One of the largest corporations in the world gets caught illegally gathering user data from children, and the Republicans in charge of deciding their punishment decide to go after the small businesses who use the corporation's platform instead. Because what else is someone who's making a living running a YouTube channel if not a small business? It's so blatant, it's really kind of hilarious. I really wish just a single one of the conservative shit for brains running their conservative shit for brains channels on YouTube would take 1 second, just 1 second, to acknowledge this before they start crying about the left-wing bias in the tech industry again. Google made a killing breaking the law, and now a bunch of Republicans are letting them get away with a slap on the wrist and taking it out on small business owners instead. That's your scary Orwellian left-wing tech industry cabal at work right there, folks. The liberal snowflakes, the bad, evil commillennials, I believe is the scientific term. Commillennials. Yeah, let's go with that. Right-wingers backing up corporations at the expense of the little guy, same as it's always been. Well, I think I've made my point. The next video is going to be something with a plastic robot in it again, I promise. Until then, please like, comment, subscribe, throw me a bone on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next one.